I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to The Resistance. I know, no hat, no beautiful background. What can I say? I made a video this morning and I was going through it tonight. I had some serious errors, and this topic just can't wait any longer. I'm going to talk about the ERA, but before I do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my grandma Rama. She was an extraordinary woman. In 1944, she's living in New York City with my dad, who was 6, my Aunt Joanne, who was a little older, and her husband, accomplished artist of the time, Bill Sharp. Had his own studio and everything. Well, Bill found himself committed to the mental ward in Bellevue Hospital. See, he was a survivor of Pearl Harbor. On the day of the attack, he was in the infirmary being treated for an infection, and his ship and all of his shipmates were lost. And that's something he never recovered from mentally. Anyway, my grandmother, she's trying to pay the bills and make rent and gets notice that the rent's going up. She didn't know what she's going to do. So she wrote a letter to the White House explaining her circumstances and all about Grandpa Bill and stuff. And lo and behold, the rent came down. They were able to make it until Bill got out of the hospital. So what's that got to do with the ERA? I'll tell you in a minute. So the ERA was passed in the House in 1971, and it passed the Senate in 1972. In March of 72, it was sent to the states for ratification. A couple of years ago, it finally received the last state needed for ratification. But for some reason, it's still not published as the 28th Amendment. Now, there's lots of reasons for that, and I'm not going to get into all those details because it'd take too long. It's easy enough to look up. But there is one thing I'll tell you about, and that's how Joe Biden made a deal with some senators when he was getting his archivist confirmed. He made a deal that he would not have her publish the 28th Amendment. I don't understand that, but a lot of those senators are gone, and, well, Joe Biden's about to ride off into the sunset. So I think that we should all embark on a campaign to get the Equal Rights Amendment published. It's the least we can do for the women in this country, given all that's transpired in the last couple of years. And to that end, I wrote a letter to the president. I sent an email to the president. I know, I told you before, don't do emails, but this is different. I called the White House. But then I also wrote to the vice president and called the White House and left her a note, and went to her page and left her a note too. And then, well, let me tell you one more thing about my grandma real quick. That letter that she wrote, well, she didn't write it to President Roosevelt. She didn't write it to the chief of staff. That letter went to First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. And I don't know what Mrs. Roosevelt did, but it worked. So that's why I also wrote a letter to First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. And she doesn't have a page on the White House website where you can leave her a note like I did for Vice President and the President. But I did find her on Instagram and Facebook and left her messages there. So I'm going to leave examples of the letters that I wrote, and I encourage you all to do the very same thing. Note that if you're going to call the White House, it's between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So here's the addresses, here's the letters. Do your thing, folks, and share and get others to do the thing too. Because think about it, what a monumental last act of President Biden to make women constitutionally equal to men in our country at last. Good day.